When you first hear the name Rovio, chances are your mind jumps straight to Angry Birds, that cultural phenomenon of slingshots, squawking birds, and pig-smashing puzzles. But Rovio hasn't been content to just coast on nostalgia forever, and this is where we arrive at Angry Birds Journey, a game that tries to recapture the accessible, family-friendly magic of the original, while smoothing out the edges for modern mobile gaming audiences. At first glance, it feels familiar. You've still got your slingshot at the bottom of the screen, birds lined up in order, and structures full of precariously stacked blocks waiting to be toppled. But once you dig in, you notice this isn't exactly the Angry Birds you remember from a decade ago. The physics are gentler, the puzzles less chaotic, and the overall presentation leans more toward polished candy-colored toy box than scrappy indie physics sandbox. That choice is both the biggest strength and the biggest drawback of the whole experience. In terms of gameplay mechanics, Angry Birds Journey is designed to be straightforward. You pull back the slingshot, aim, and let the bird fly into the structures, watching as blocks, glass, wood, and stone come tumbling down. Classic birds return. Red with his straightforward trajectory, Chuck with his speedy dash, Bomb with his explosive power, and the blues that split into 3 smaller projectiles. But the mechanics have been streamlined. Birds automatically trigger their powers on impact rather than requiring mid-air taps, meaning there's less room for finesse and timing tricks. This makes the game much easier to pick up, especially for younger players or casual audiences who may have found the original game's precision a bit frustrating. On the flip side, longtime fans might feel the loss of skill expression, where those perfectly timed taps once made the difference between scraping through with 1 star and elegantly clearing a level with 3. Progression in Angry Birds Journey is structured around episodic maps and levels that get progressively more elaborate, but rarely punishingly hard. You're traveling across whimsical environments, moving from magical forests to frozen mountains, sunny beaches, and temple ruins, each with their own themed obstacles and visual flair. Rather than raw difficulty spikes, the game emphasizes a steady drip of new level gimmicks. Balloons that lift blocks, ropes that tie things together, hidden crates that drop more projectiles. So there's always something new to account for, but nothing that radically changes the core loop. Levels are short, often lasting under a minute, which makes them perfect for the pick-up-and-play mobile design ethos. There's a stamina system in the form of lives that recharge over time, a familiar free-to-play tactic to limit marathon sessions unless you're willing to spend money. Story and characters are kept light. The Angry Birds are given a more cheerful, Saturday morning cartoon treatment here, with fully voiced cutscenes sprinkled throughout. The pigs still serve as bumbling antagonists, often stealing eggs or setting up elaborate block forts to slow you down, but the tone is much more whimsical and less mischievous than the earlier games. Instead of rage and slapstick revenge, the mood is more adventurous and playful. Rovio clearly wants the birds to feel like endearing mascots again, rather than just projectiles you fling into rubble. Whether this softer approach resonates depends on what you value. It's charming, sure, but it lacks some of that chaotic slapstick punch the series originally thrived on. Visually, the game is gorgeous in its own way. Rovio leans hard into vibrant colors, smooth animations, and highly polished environments. The art style is more rounded and toy-like than the jagged, handmade feel of the 2009 original. Everything looks like it could be part of a physical playset, and the birds themselves are incredibly expressive with wide eyes and exaggerated reactions. The destruction is still satisfying, though toned down. Blocks topple with cartoon physics rather than explosive chaos, which makes the game feel safer and more predictable. This was likely intentional again to appeal to younger players and avoid frustration, but for veterans it can feel a little sterile. Sound design plays its role with upbeat background music and lighthearted sound effects. The birds chirp, the pigs squeal, blocks clatter down with gentle thuds rather than bone-rattling crashes. It's cohesive. It fits the family-friendly vibe, but it also removes some of the visceral thrill. You never get that sense of wild chain reaction chaos like you did in Angry Birds Space or Angry Birds Rio, where one well-placed shot could send half the level into a glorious domino effect. Instead, success is more methodical, more designed around puzzle solving than emergent chaos. Controls are of course simple. Swipe back, release, and watch the trajectory. The game does a nice job of providing dotted lines to preview shots, so you rarely feel lost. The user interface is clean, though maybe a little over-decorated with icons for events, shops, daily rewards, and side challenges. It's very clear this is a modern free-to-play app, not a one-time purchase. Monetization comes in the form of boosters, extra lives, and cosmetics, plus the usual seasonal events with limited time rewards. It's not as aggressive as some Match 3 games, but it's still ever-present. If you want to push through long sessions or secure extra retries on tough levels, the game nudges you toward spending. Performance is solid, running smoothly even on mid-range phones. Rovio has always been technically reliable with their mobile releases, and Angry Birds Journey is no exception. Animations are crisp, loading times are short, and crashes are rare. Replayability comes primarily from the sheer number of levels, hundreds, with new ones added regularly. There are also global leaderboards and timed events to keep players engaged. But since the mechanics are so simplified, the long-term depth might not keep more dedicated puzzle fans hooked. It's the kind of game you check in with for a quick burst rather than something you obsessively master. Community reception has been mixed. Many players appreciate the return to classic Slingshot gameplay after Rovio experimented with RPGs, kart racers, and bubble shooters. For casual fans, this feels like a cozy return to form, easy to slip back into without stress. But hardcore, veterans who loved the precision, the challenge, and the wild experimentation of earlier Angry Birds titles often criticize Journey for being too watered down, too safe, too eager to appeal to monetization loops rather than pure gameplay joy. When comparing Angry Birds Journey to earlier titles, the differences are striking. The original Angry Birds had grit, those scrappy flash-like visuals, the unpredictable physics that sometimes worked in your favor and sometimes didn't. The thrill of solving a puzzle, not by following the intended path, but by experimenting and watching chaos unfold. Later spin-offs like Angry Birds Star Wars and Space pushed the mechanics in creative ways, adding gravity fields or lightsabers. Angry Birds Journey, by contrast, is more of a return to basics, but with much of the chaos sanded away in favor of polish. It's less about surprising experimentation and more about safe, bite-sized puzzles that always play out as intended. Ultimately, Angry Birds Journey is a game caught between two identities. On one hand, it's a charming, approachable puzzle game that's perfect for kids, families, and anyone who wants a stress-free mobile distraction. On the other, it's a watered-down version of what once made Angry Birds exciting, lacking the sharp edges and unpredictable fun that gave the series its original cultural bite. Rovio has clearly prioritized accessibility and mass appeal over depth, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a very different thing. If you're looking for nostalgia, this might scratch the itch but feel like a sanitized version of your memories. If you're new or just want something cheerful and low stress, it could be the perfect daily companion. It's Angry Birds made, safer, smoother, and softer. A journey that's less about chaos and more about comfort.
Yes, yes.